At exactly 5:17 on a humid morning in the Strait of Hormuz, 23 Iranian speedboats broke formation and pointed their bows straight toward the USS Abraham Lincoln. No radio calls, no identification signals, just 23 diesel-powered fast attack craft racing across the water at nearly 60 knots toward a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. The crews believed speed and numbers would give them the advantage. They had trained for swarm tactics, counting on confusion and aggression to overwhelm a much larger opponent. What they did not realize was that they were about to learn how a modern carrier strike group actually responds when challenged. The Abraham Lincoln was not alone. Two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers escorted the carrier at roughly 4,000 yards, the USS Thomas Hudner to port and the USS Mason to starboard. Between them, a Cyclone-class patrol boat named Sirocco moved ahead at 25 knots, acting as a screening vessel. Its crew of 28 spotted the incoming contacts first. At 18 nautical miles away, the boats appeared on radar like ordinary fishing traffic. By 12 miles, the pattern became obvious. This was no commercial traffic. It was a coordinated swarm formation, a tactic long associated with Iranian Revolutionary Guard naval doctrine. 5:18. Inside the Abraham Lincoln's Tactical Operations Center, the decision was made to launch airborne support. Two MH-60R Seahawk helicopters lifted from the flight deck, their twin turboshaft engines roaring as they climbed into the humid morning sky. Each helicopter carried M2 4.0 machine guns mounted in the doors and AGM-114 Hellfire missiles under the wings. Their mission was straightforward: observe the swarm, identify threats, and be ready to act if necessary. The helicopters climbed to 1,500 feet and turned toward the approaching formation. From above, the pilots could clearly see the entire group, 23 boats forming a loose V shape, their wakes cutting bright white lines across the dark water. Several boats carried visible rocket launchers. Others had heavy machine guns mounted on improvised frames. It was a textbook example of asymmetric naval tactics. Small, fast craft attempting to challenge a far more advanced fleet through numbers and speed. 5:19. The Iranian boats split into 3 groups. 14 continued directly toward the carrier. 6 angled toward the USS Mason. 3 accelerated toward the USS Thomas Hudner. Speed increased from 60 knots to nearly 70. Some of the boats appeared to be newer Siraj-class variants, lightweight fiberglass hulls powered by twin diesel engines, capable of reaching over 80 knots in calm water. Each one cost roughly $400,000. The aircraft carrier they were approaching cost more than $13 billion. Inside the Abraham Lincoln's Combat Information Center, the atmosphere shifted from routine monitoring to full operational focus in seconds. Petty officers tagged radar contacts. Officers confirmed threat vectors. Within a minute and a half, every ship in the strike group had the same tactical picture. The Iranian boats were approximately 8 minutes away. To the American crews, that felt like plenty of time. Plenty of time to prepare. Plenty of time to hope the situation would de-escalate before anything serious happened. To understand what happened next, you need to understand the Phalanx close-in weapon system, often nicknamed R2D2 because of its shape. The Phalanx is a 20mm M61 Vulcan Gatling gun mounted on an automated turret. 6 rotating barrels fire up to 4,500 rounds per minute, about 75 tungsten rounds every second. The system has its own radar, its own targeting computer, and its own fire control logic. Once placed in automatic mode, it can detect threats, calculate firing solutions, and engage targets in less than 2 seconds. Its effective range is roughly 4,000 yards, but it usually fires much closer than that. Around 1,600 yards is typical, where the shot pattern is tight and the chance of stopping a target is highest. At that distance, a speedboat traveling at 70 knots can close the gap in under a minute. There is no time for long discussions. The system simply reacts. A later upgrade added something especially important for encounters like this: an infrared sensor and a surface engagement mode that allows the system to track and engage small boats moving at sea level. Originally designed to stop incoming missiles, it became equally capable of handling fast surface threats. 5:24. 3 speedboats broke formation and rushed toward the USS Thomas Hudner at full throttle. Engines roaring, bows lifted high above the water. They closed rapidly. 3,500 yards, 2,500 yards, 1,500 yards. The situation now clearly demonstrated hostile intent. Armed boats approaching a warship at high speed met the criteria for defensive action. The destroyer's weapons officer authorized engagement. The Phalanx mount rotated, radar locked onto the lead boat. The computer verified the target and began the firing sequence. The barrels spun, 75 rounds per second. The lead boat vanished in seconds. High-velocity tungsten rounds tore through the fiberglass hull, ripping apart the bow and engine compartment almost instantly. Fuel ignited, debris scattered across the water. The system fired roughly 137 rounds, an engagement costing about $6,000 in ammunition. The boat it stopped cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Several crew members were seen in the water moments later, alive but stunned. The second boat attempted a hard turn. Above it, a Seahawk helicopter had already been tracking the movement. The door gunner opened fire with the M240 machine gun. Tracer rounds streaked across the water, guiding the burst onto the boat's stern. The engine compartment was hit. Power failed. The craft slowed and drifted. The crew began abandoning the vessel. The third boat attempted to escape at full speed, but the Cyclone-class patrol ship Sirocco had already moved into position about 2,200 yards away. Its Mk-38 Mod 2 weapon system tracked the fleeing craft. The gunner fired. The 25mm chain gun launched high-explosive rounds toward the target. The first burst splashed into the water behind it. The gunner adjusted. The second burst connected. The fiberglass hull could not withstand military-grade ammunition, moving at nearly 900 meters per second. Rounds tore through the engine compartment and forward hull. Within moments, the boat slowed, stopped, and began taking on water. The crew abandoned ship, 5:26. Then everything went quiet. The entire encounter, from first shot to ceasefire, lasted just over a minute and a half. 3 boats disabled, no American ships damaged, no American personnel injured. The remaining 20 Iranian boats quickly scattered. Some retreated at full speed, others slowed at a distance, observing from afar. The USS Abraham Lincoln never changed course, not a single degree of heading adjustment, not a single knot of speed reduced. A $13 billion carrier continued moving through the Strait of Hormuz as if the encounter had been little more than a brief interruption. But the intelligence gathered was significant. Every radar emission from the boats had been recorded, every engine signature cataloged. Flight crews captured video and sensor data of the entire event. One detail stood out immediately. The newer Siraj-class boats were faster than analysts had previously estimated. The Iranian crews actually showed more discipline than in earlier encounters. Their boats split formation intelligently. They used commercial shipping as partial cover and adjusted their movement to reduce clear radar exposure. From a tactical standpoint, they demonstrated real training and coordination. American analysts noticed all of it. Every maneuver, every formation change, every engine signature was recorded, analyzed, and stored for future planning. To understand why the tactic still failed, you have to understand how swarm attacks are supposed to work. The theory is simple. Overwhelm advanced defense systems with large numbers of small, inexpensive, fast-moving assets. A destroyer carries hundreds of missiles and thousands of rounds of ammunition, but its magazines are not endless. Send enough boats, and eventually the math should favor the attacker. Some vessels might get through the defensive layers, some could reach launch range for missiles or torpedoes. In the most extreme scenario, some might even attempt to collide with the target. It's naval warfare reduced to basic arithmetic, quantity against quality. The problem is execution. Swarm tactics only succeed if the defender loses track of the individual threats. They depend on confusion, overloaded sensors, or human operators being unable to react quickly enough. Modern naval sensor networks are built specifically to prevent that. The SPY-1D radar aboard the USS Mason tracked all 23 boats continuously. The failing systems handled the closest threats automatically. Seahawk helicopters provided overhead surveillance and rapid response capability. The Cyclone-class patrol ship intercepted any craft attempting to escape or reposition. It was layered defense working exactly as designed, every direction covered, every gap monitored. Iran has been refining swarm tactics since the tanker conflicts of the 1980s. Faster boats, improved weapons, and better training have all been added over the decades. But one core challenge remains unsolved. Speed and numbers only matter if attackers can close the distance without being stopped. Modern defensive systems are designed to prevent exactly that. The financial comparison also tells an interesting story. Iran deployed 23 boats. Each burned roughly 200 gallons of diesel during the 2-hour mission. Fuel costs alone came to around $9,000. When crew pay, maintenance, and operational support are included, the mission likely cost close to $50,000 just to launch. 3 destroyed boats represented about $1.2 million in equipment losses. Add the intelligence value of revealing tactical methods, the propaganda setback, and the operational embarrassment of retreating after engagement, and analysts estimate the total impact approached $5 million. The United States spent far less during the encounter, about 137 phalanx rounds at roughly $46 each, around $6,300. 25mm ammunition from the Bushmaster cannon added roughly $11,000. Helicopter fuel and machine gun ammunition contributed another $3,000. Total estimated American expendables used, around $20,000. The weapon systems themselves were unaffected. They remained operational and ready for the next mission. But the most important cost was not financial, it was deterrence. Every unsuccessful swarm attempt sends a clear signal to future adversaries. Fast boats alone cannot close the distance against layered modern defenses. Each disabled vessel reinforces a message. We detect you early, we track you continuously, and you always have one chance to turn away. After that, the outcome becomes predictable. The 3 Iranian crews recovered from the water were transferred to Iranian Coast Guard vessels within 4 hours, following international maritime procedures. They returned home with first-hand accounts their commanders probably preferred not to circulate widely. Stories about automated weapons engaging in seconds, about tungsten rounds shredding fiberglass hulls, about helicopters attacking from angles impossible for small boats to defend against. Inside tightly controlled military structures, those kinds of stories travel quickly through informal channels, and they shape future decisions. At 5:43, the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group continued its transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Training schedules resumed that same afternoon. Meals were served at the usual times. The event was logged, reported, and analyzed. For a carrier strike group, it was simply another operational moment in a very busy day. Within 72 hours, Iranian state media released carefully edited footage showing Revolutionary Guard boats confronting the American fleet. Domestic audiences saw a story of bravery and defiance, but navigation records revealed a different picture. During the entire encounter, the aircraft carrier maintained a perfectly straight course and constant speed. The defensive response treated the approaching boats with the same level of urgency most people reserve for persistent seagulls at a beach picnic. This is what modern deterrence often looks like. Not dramatic explosions or large battles, but short demonstrations of capability that make the outcome obvious before a conflict ever escalates. It is similar to playing chess against a grandmaster while announcing your moves several turns in advance. Control of information determines control of the situation. And in this encounter, the information advantage belonged entirely to the carrier strike group. That morning, the Strait of Hormuz remained open. No crisis escalated. No emergency diplomatic calls were needed. 20 speedboats returned home, carrying detailed reports. Meanwhile, one of the most powerful naval formations on Earth continued its journey without interruption. Some lessons in military strategy are delivered with overwhelming force. Others are delivered with quiet precision. For the commanders who planned that swarm attempt, the efficiency of the response may have been the most uncomfortable lesson of all. They arrived expecting a confrontation. Instead, they encountered a carefully controlled demonstration. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to subscribe and share the video. It helps bring more untold stories about modern military operations to the channel.